Welcome back to the IBFP. Here's your host, Foxy New.
Fanboys, be advised, this video contains the absolute truth, may cause hurt feelings, and the need to thumbs down the video. Skills versus hype. Fact versus fiction. Let's just break it down. Canelo Alvarez stops Jermall Charlo to the body. And look, let's break it down. Leonard Hot Dog Nose Ellaby came out with an interesting statement that has the boxing world buzzing. He states that Jermall Charlo is the best middleweight in the world right now. Jermall's style is all wrong for Canelo Alvarez. They would never put Canelo Alvarez in there with Jermall Charlo. I don't think Canelo goes anywhere near Jermall. He's an animal. And that's a direct quote from Leonard Hot Dog Nose Ellaby. And so let's just break down the fact from fiction. You know, fanboys are running wild with this biased narrative. And, you know, we all know that Leonard Hot Dog Nose Ellaby is a notorious liar. Everything he says is biased and a lie when it comes to the fighters that he represents, promotes, and that are from the PBC or Mayweather promotion. So let's just break down the absolute truth. And we're only going to use facts, never feelings, never emotion, just the facts of the situation. And the facts is Jermall Charlo is the one who turned down a Canelo Alvarez offer. It's already come out. He's already been exposed for this. And yet you still have some fanboys either too delusional, in denial, or too stupid to look at the facts that Jermall Charlo has already ducked the Canelo Alvarez fight. He was made the offer. Even Eddie Reynoso, Canelo Alvarez's own trainer, called Jermall Charlo easy work for Canelo Alvarez. Jermall Charlo has already ducked the fight. Anybody that doesn't understand that simply does not want to accept a fact, and that is a fact. You know what another fact is? His brother Jermall Charlo confirmed that Jermall Charlo ducked Canelo Alvarez. And what I mean by that is, you know, Jermall Charlo went on a live Instagram rant, on Jermall Charlo. And during that rant, he went out and said, I would never turn down a Canelo Alvarez fight. See, we got to be real about what we're seeing. So now you have De La Hoya coming out saying Jermall Charlo ducked Canelo. You have Eddie Reynoso saying that Jermall Charlo's easy work for Canelo Alvarez. And you even have Jermall Charlo coming out saying, I would never turn down a Canelo Alvarez fight during an interview where he was going ham on his brother Jermall. These are all facts. If you don't like them, do your research. They're facts. They're not going to change. That's not my opinion. That's not how I feel. Those are facts. And the interesting thing about Jermall Charlo and the statement that, Leonard Hot Dog Nose Ellaby made saying that Jermall Charlo is all wrong for Canelo, it's the other way around. Canelo Alvarez is all wrong for Jermall Charlo. And what I mean by that is Jermall Charlo was hurt to the body in the 8th round against Sergey Deverenchenko. He was stunned and visibly shook from that body shot. He immediately started clinching. He stopped using his jab. The punches that he had didn't have the same effect after he was hurt to the body. That's what happened in the 8th round. He went to the body and he hurt Jermall Charlo. Now Canelo Alvarez is an elite level body puncher. He's an elite level body attacker. Canelo Alvarez will stop Jermall Charlo to the body. He's going to blow past his jab and break him down to the body and eventually stop Jermall Charlo. See, we've already seen your weakness. We've already seen you get exposed with the weakness. And that's what happens when you step up against competition. We've never seen him hurt to the body before because he was in there with a bunch of tomato cans. Now he went in with the guy who could actually show some vulnerabilities in him, who could actually push him, and Jermall Charlo did win that fight well. I give him credit for that. But we also have to admit that he was hurt in the 8th round. He was visibly shook, stopped using his jab, and started clinching and holding at that point. So we understand that Jermall Charlo was hurt to the body, and Canelo Alvarez is an elite level body attacker, and he will break Jermall Charlo down directly to the body. Think about it like this. He's already broke down a bigger fighter who's more decorated champion than Jermall Charlo and 2 weight classes higher than Charlo, and a Sergey the Crusher Kovalev. He shows you just how he can break somebody down to the body. We got to be real about it. And then look, a lot of people are really comparing Canelo Alvarez and Sergey Deverenchenko as a barometer for how well Jermall Charlo would do against Canelo Alvarez, which makes no sense to me because at the end of the day, Canelo Alvarez and Sergey Deverenchenko are nothing alike. People are always comparing these guys. Their height is the only thing that they similarly have in common, and Sergey Deverenchenko is about a half an inch to an inch taller than Canelo Alvarez. That is the only thing that's somewhat similar. They're using Sergey Deverenchenko as a measuring stick for a Canelo Charlo fight when literally they're nothing alike. Makes no sense. And the first reason why they're nothing alike is that Canelo Alvarez is in his prime. Sergey Deverenchenko is no longer in his prime. That is one of the main differences. People are simply too stupid or they're biased to look at the facts. And we have to look at the facts. The fact is Canelo Alvarez is in his prime. Sergey Deverenchenko is not. Another thing is Canelo Alvarez is even younger than Jermall Charlo. See, a lot of people forget that Canelo Alvarez has been putting in work. He's the #1 pound-for-pound fighter in the world, but he's still younger than Jermall Charlo. This is Charlo's biggest fight of his career. Canelo Alvarez been at this level. He's been facing better opponents than this. So, it's very funny when people use, a guy like Sergey Deverenchenko as a measuring stick when Canelo Alvarez is leaps and bounds ahead. And I'll break down the intangibles as to why he's leaps and bounds ahead. When you look at the defense, you see Canelo Alvarez made a prime Danny Jacobs miss consistently in their fight. I mean, this guy was ducking and dodging all of his shots. This is a Danny Jacobs that already beat Sergey Deverenchenko first. He was the first guy to beat Sergey Deverenchenko. He didn't get an old, washed-up Sergey Deverenchenko. He didn't get a Sergey Deverenchenko after a couple of wars, a few losses. No, he got a fresh Sergey Deverenchenko. He got a Sergey Deverenchenko who was younger, fresher, no wars, and undefeated. That's the Sergey Deverenchenko Danny Jacobs got, and he beat that Sergey Deverenchenko. He even did something Charlo didn't do. It was drop Sergey Deverenchenko. And you know what happens? Canelo Alvarez went in there and got a clear-cut victory over a prime Danny Jacobs, who was also a world champion. And he rarely got hit with anything flush. See, his head movement was elite, and he displayed it in that fight. Canelo Alvarez also shown elite level head movement against a guy like Gennady Golovkin. Took no significant or serious punishment. Didn't sit there and eat 1,000 shots like Sergey Deverenchenko in that fight. He simply was slipping and moving the whole time, especially in the first fight. But on the other hand, you see Sergey Deverenchenko took a ton of punishment from Danny Jacobs, in their particular fight. He even got dropped in that fight. It was a good, close, competitive fight, but at the same time, Danny Jacobs clearly won the fight, and Sergey Deverenchenko did take a significant amount of punishment. Even in the Triple G fight, Sergey Deverenchenko, both of this guy's eyes were swollen shut. Like the guy could barely see leaving the arena. That's how bad it was for Sergey Deverenchenko. Triple G swelled up both of his eyes on his face. So when you look at defense between the two fighters, you see that Jermall Charlo would have no picnic with Canelo Alvarez, but he could set up shot free will against a guy like Sergey Deverenchenko. That's a huge difference. Ring IQ. A lot of people don't understand ring IQ. So let me explain this to you. Ring IQ measures your boxing intelligence, knowing what adjustments to make and how to make them, playing to your strengths and your opponent's weaknesses. So that's what the ring IQ is. Pretty much your boxing intelligence. How you make adjustments. How do you play to your strengths? Your ring IQ. Now, the thing about this is we saw Sergey Deverenchenko's ring IQ against Jermall Charlo. The guy couldn't get past the jab. He would, and then when he did go to the body, he hurt Charlo, but he went away from it and kept getting stifled by the jab. The jab was literally breaking him down almost the entire fight. The jab was his biggest enemy in that particular fight. And that was the one reason why Jermall Charlo built up an early lead and got the victory over Sergey Deverenchenko, was simply because of his great use of the jab and Sergey Deverenchenko's inability to get around it. But you see, Canelo Alvarez has already faced a top-level jabs from world champions. He's went past a bigger, stronger jab, and Sergey Kovalev broke him down and stopped him to the body. The same weakness of Jermall Charlo. So we've seen Canelo Alvarez in there. And guess who's the same height as Sergey Kovalev? Jermall Charlo. Both of these guys are the same height, and yet, Sergey Kovalev is regarded as the bigger, stronger puncher. And Canelo Alvarez still broke him down. Danny Jacobs, still regarded as a very big, strong puncher, as equal as Charlo, and these guys are the same size. And yet Canelo Alvarez went under and around his jab. He closed the distance and broke him down. See, for Sergey Derevyanchenko, the height and reach advantage was a problem. But for Canelo Alvarez, it's something that he can work his way through, get around, and break down his opponent. See, that ring IQ for Canelo Alvarez is obviously higher. That's another problem for Jermall Charlo. Then let's get to the chin. The chin of Sergey Derevyanchenko is nowhere near the same as Canelo Alvarez. Sergey Derevyanchenko, we've seen him taste the canvas against Danny Jacobs, and it was a good flush shot. We've seen him taste the canvas against Triple G early in that fight. It was a good flush shot. And we also know that he was hurt against Jermall Charlo. Even though he never hit the canvas against Jermall Charlo, he was hurt multiple times in that fight as well. So we know that he can be hurt at this level in this division. It doesn't take a lot to hurt this guy if you're a top level fighter, because his defense is leaky and his chin is solid, but it's not elite, it's not iron, it's not strong. But on the reverse end, Canelo Alvarez's chin, it is probably one of the best, if not the best, in the division. The guy went head up, Mexican style, blow for blow against a guy like Gennady Golovkin, the strongest puncher in the division at the time, and did not fall, did not drop, did not take a knee. This guy went up 2 weight classes to light heavyweight and, went blow for blow with a guy like Sergey Kovalev. So at the end of the day, we know Canelo Alvarez's chin is the real deal. But just throwing in chins, even if you throw in Jermall Charlo's chin, we've seen him hurt to the body. We've seen him hurt to the body against Sergey Derevyanchenko in the 8th round. So we understand that would be another issue for Jermall Charlo to even think about getting past. And then you get to the power. We know Sergey Derevyanchenko has good, respectable power for the division. He's no slouch. He's hurt Danny Jacobs. He's hurt Triple G. And he's even hurt Jermall Charlo in all of those fights. He's a quality fighter. But Canelo Alvarez has also hurt Danny Jacobs, made him not even want to throw, made him reluctant to engage, and that's how he outclassed Danny Jacobs. He pushed Triple G back in the second fight. The first time anyone has ever seen Triple G push back the way he was. The only time we've ever seen Triple G take that type of punishment at that point in his career. Triple G has never been the same after the second fight with Canelo Alvarez, period. He just will never be the same after that fight. Canelo Alvarez took something out of him in that fight. We know his power is legitimate. And he went up to light heavyweight and stopped Sergey Kovalev. We know Canelo Alvarez is one of the strongest, most stout fighters in the division, period. And then we get to resume. And when you look at resume, you look at a guy like Sergey Derevyanchenko, who's a good, solid fighter. But at the same time, Sergey Derevyanchenko has lost every step-up fight he's ever been in when it came to guys like, Jermall Charlo, Danny Jacobs, Triple G. He didn't do enough to get the victory in any of those fights. So at the end of the day, Sergey Derevyanchenko is a good fighter. He's a solid guy. He's a good all-around fighter, but he's not at the elite level. He's a top fighter, but not an elite one. There's levels to boxing. And when you look at Sergey Derevyanchenko, you know what move he's making next? You know what move he's making next? You know where he's going next? According to Lance Pugmire with the LA Times, Sergey Derevyanchenko's manager, Keith Connolly, tells me that the plan is to move Sergey Derevyanchenko, the 3-time beaten middleweight title challenger, to the 154-pound division. So Sergey Derevyanchenko has had no success at 160 pounds facing champions. He's moving down in weight to better his odds and chances of winning his first world title. He's a quality fighter, but he cannot compete with the upper echelons of anyone at 160 pounds. And he's also past his prime. So, at the end of the day, the resume is nowhere near Canelo Alvarez. Canelo Alvarez is the #1 pound-for-pound fighter in the world. That is a fact. He's pretty much regarded as the #1 pound-for-pound in the world by The Ring, by ESPN, by any major sports outlet. Canelo Alvarez has the best resume in boxing aside from Manny Pacquiao. And, at the end of the day, Canelo Alvarez is the only one at his age putting in this type of work, facing champion after champion, back to back to back. Jermall Charlo's biggest step of his entire entire career wasn't even a guy who's ever been a world champion, wasn't even a prime fighter, wasn't even someone who was undefeated. This guy had losses. This guy had, been already dropped in multiple fights. This guy has been in wars, sustained punishment, past his prime, and never been a world champion. So we see what levels there are to boxing, because these are facts, not feelings. So, a lot of people aren't going to like the truth. A lot of people aren't going to accept the truth, but that's okay, because the truth is not for everybody. The truth is Canelo Alvarez is all wrong for Jermall Charlo. Sergey Deverenchenko was his best fight of his career, and he even got hurt in the 8th round against Sergey Deverenchenko. Sergey Deverenchenko was being called a cherry pick for Canelo. That's how great Canelo Alvarez is. And that is, once again, a fact and never a feeling. Once again, unbiased as always, it's the IBFP.